Hello, Shwmai, Croeso, welcome to the first of two EdTech, How to Empower All Students webinars. My name is Ryan, and I'll shortly introduce you to Alison from Texthelp, but basically a quick summary of how this webinar has come about. Aspire to be very standalone and independent across Europe as the only professional development partner for Apple, Microsoft, and Google. So we are very proud to partner with Texthelp, who again offer the same partnerships across the three platforms. And one of Aspire to Be's solutions, Included You, focuses on personalized learning for all students. And it's been a partnership that's generated and developed over a number of years now across the pond, obviously us here in Wales and Alison and the Texthelp team over across the Irish Sea. And it's something that we've been wanting to do for a long time to showcase what we thought just to Welsh educators, but delighted to say that there's a number of you joining us today live or potentially on demand from right across the UK and Ireland. And we wanted to flip the approach, the normal approach to webinars. We wanted to put Texthelp in the hot seat rather than perhaps the traditional Texthelp webinar where they're the hosts. So roles reversed today, Alison. It's great to finally be here after months of talking about doing this. I'll hand over you. You give us a brief introduction about yourself, Texthelp, for those of the Aspire to Be partner schools perhaps who aren't aware of you, and some of the tools we're going to be talking about today.
Sure, no problem. Thanks so much, Ryan. It is really great to be able to do this. We have been chatting about it for a long time, and it's lovely to finally have it all pulled together. So my name is Alison Woodrow, and I work at Texthelp, and my role there is what's called a group school specialist, which means I work with schools who come as part of an education authority or part of a multi-academy trust. And I know today we are looking at schools from across the UK, and you may or may not fall into that category. That doesn't matter in terms of what we're going to actually talk about here today. So I am at the top of a very windy hill in County Antrim. Hopefully my accent will not cause any issues, but do feel free at the end to get in touch if there's anything that wasn't clear or anything that I was too fast on or that you would like to hear again. Texthelp has been around now for 25 years. For any of you who aren't aware of us, we are based out of County Antrim in Northern Ireland, about half an hour really away from Belfast, but we've got offices right around the world, the US, the Nordics, mainland UK, Australia, and so on. So we have been around for a long time. We've been building and building and building on our solutions, all tied around this purpose of wanting to help everyone understand and be understood. So that starts in education, obviously, and goes right through into further and higher ed and into the workplace as well. And that is what we are all about. And as I say, we've been building and building, and we've got, I think, somewhere in the region of 50 million users at the moment. We've got a very ambitious target of wanting to reach 1 billion users by the year 2030. And we believe that we are right now at the cusp of that, especially off the back of COVID, where people have really started to see the benefit of a lot of our EdTech solutions in terms of how they work in their schools. So we're going to have a bit of a look at that today. Just very quickly, our products are very easy to deploy add-ons that support accessibility and learning across the curriculum, working everywhere that learning happens. And these are the things we're going to look at today. So these are the things that are so important: accessibility, reaching every student, and doing so everywhere that learning takes place. I toyed with taking this out because I didn't want to go on too long with an introduction, but I just love this visual. This is a flight of stairs in Vancouver, I believe. And obviously there has been a ramp built in to that flight of stairs. So you can climb the stairs if you want, but if you're a wheelchair user, you have the ramp. If you have a suitcase, you also have the ramp. If you're pushing a pram, you also have the ramp. If you're on roller skates, you also have the ramp. So while the ramp is necessary for those wheelchair users to help them get around, it will be useful for all of those other groups of people. And that's how we like to look at our tools. What I'm going to show you here today, you will see that there are tools built in here that will be lifesavers for some of your students, that will make the difference between them floundering or achieving in your classroom. But there are also tools that will be useful for everyone, staff and students alike. And we're going to mainly look, which we've mentioned on our socials and on the form that you signed up in, we're going to mainly look at two of Texthelp solutions. So the first one is called Read and Write. Very much does what it says on the tin. It's a literacy support toolbar, and it is there to help students with any barriers or any struggles they might have with their literacy, with their reading and writing. Should that be language? Should that be a special educational need? Should that be a more visual style of learning? Whatever it is that they struggle with, that perhaps keeps them from reaching their full potential with reading and writing, Read and Write is there to help with that. And I'm going to show you that in a little minute or two. The other one is called Orbit Note. This is a much newer tool. This was very much born out of COVID and everything that has happened in the last few years, when we had teachers who were using PDFs, assigning them to students at home who maybe didn't have printers, didn't know how to complete them, were taking photos of work, sending it back. There was nothing very satisfactory about how PDFs were working when we were suddenly thrown into the world of remote learning. So it very much pulls together similar tools to Read and Write, trying to help students to express themselves, to access information, but information that is held in PDFs rather than in a Word document or a Google Doc, and to very much just make sure that PDFs are every bit as accessible as other documents are. So that will hopefully be very interesting to those of you who perhaps have a lot of even historical resources in PDFs. So as Ryan said, we're doing things a little bit differently this time. So you've been sending in some questions, and we're just going to launch into those questions now.
Fantastic. Thank you for that introduction, Alison. And yeah, hopefully those that haven't seen the tools before will have a much better understanding at the end of this webinar. Those that are using it, hopefully you can find some useful little nuggets, as they say, to take your use of it. For me, what I would call the Rolls Royce of accessibility tools in Texthelp. I have for a long time. I've been a user when I was an educator myself. Obviously, well, I'm still an educator, but obviously I'm a full-time partner technologist out supporting schools, and can see the fantastic use and support that they offer all students. That visual you just put on is fantastic. I've not seen that specific one, and it's such a nice way of doing it. And a similar one, I suppose, metaphoric. Everyone talks about going up the stairs, but also coming down. There's some tools you need that extra support on. There's some you can just take to, and obviously coming down the ramp, it would be a quicker one. Somebody mentioned that in the past, and it's always stuck with me. It's quite a nice, a two-way analogy, I suppose. Anyway, yeah, like I said, we've been promoting this webinar series for a number of weeks. On the sign-up form, we had a real clear question to highlight how we wanted to run these webinars. And the question we posed was, what's one thing you would like to know more about as a result of attending this event? I think it's key that for those of you tuning in live or watching on demand, you get the best out of this, because Alison and I have spoken for weeks throughout the pandemic. People were attending webinars and upskilling because they had to, and they had the opportunity perhaps to do so. In the classroom at the moment, with hopefully the pandemic, we've seen the back of the pandemic, and things are getting a little bit more back to normal. You need these bite-sized chunks. So we've very much seen a lot of precise niche little area questions coming in. So hopefully we can showcase those and meet the needs of the people watching today. We have had some general questions, Alison, about how to use technology to help learners with additional learning needs or special education needs. What apps are available to support ALN learners, and how can you use them? So there are some general ones which I think over the course of today's session and the second webinar, we will hopefully answer those organically. But the specific ones, and the first one I'm going to pose to you is from Stephanie, who's an ALNco. I think I know which Stephanie this is. Hello, if you are watching, Stephanie. Stephanie has got a rising number of needs with pupils in their school. And as seen online, I think it's Twitter, has read there's lots of supporting tools available within one of the specific Texthelp extensions that I know she's becoming aware of. So where does she start with using that one key tool, which I think is Read and Write?
Yes. Okay, perfect. No, this is something that we're getting told by everyone pretty much that we talk about it, that we talk with at the moment, that there is this rising number of needs in schools, and that's no doubt off the back of the pandemic, where some students got left behind, where they've come back and they're really struggling, and maybe missed the best part of 2 years of teaching, and so are now really in a place that they shouldn't have been. And so Alenkos and Senkos across the country are just finding that their workload is increasing, and that they have more and more needs to meet. And what we very often talk about in terms of read and write is that it is one toolbar that should meet loads of different needs. So we're not just, you don't have to buy one piece of software that will work for one particular student, or even one piece of hardware or one set of books for a specific need. That with read and write, you have tools that should be able to help all of these students and help them become, we're going to talk a lot today about independent learners, help them become more independent learners, help them to be able to work on certain things without needing maybe quite so much help and support, and hopefully get them back up to where they should be. So that's what we'll look at when it comes to read and write. Lots of supporting tools available within one Texthelp extension. Absolutely, that's what I can show you today. So I'm going to pop in now, share my screen again. I'm going to be doing a lot of clicking and back and forward, so Ryan's going to keep me right if I am talking about something that I'm not showing you. Hopefully I'll manage, but I'm just going to pop back in and share a document with you here and show you what read and write looks like. If you've never seen it before, this might be your first time looking at read and write. So I will be able to show you what I mean when I say there are lots of tools in one place. This is a document, hopefully you can see. It's about elephants. And read and write, now this is a Google Doc, so I'm going to be using the Google extension for this particular question. Later on, I'm going to show you the Microsoft version as well. Just to let you know, actually, at this point, read and write works in Google, Microsoft, Mac, Apple, iPad, and Android. Okay, so just to make you aware of that, if you have students using different devices, if you have students who have one device in school and perhaps another one at home, read and write is available across the board for them, so you don't have to be tied down to one. For now, I'm just going to show you the Google extension, but if you can use one, you'll be able to use all of the others, so don't worry about that. So this is a Google Doc, and we're going to look at the Google extension, which is this little jigsaw puzzle piece up here at the top, the little purple jigsaw puzzle piece. That is the read and write toolbar. So you can see hopefully now that this has dropped down at the top of my screen, and that's what we're going to go through. Some of the sort of key ones, particularly when you're thinking of ALN, SEN, what are some of the key tools that those students are really, really going to benefit from, and how hopefully it all pulls together into just one tool for all. Okay, so the sort of bread and butter really of read and write, where we began, where we started, was text to speech, a play button, and it is as simple as clicking play and having the text read aloud. Now, what I'm going to say is a bit of a disclaimer, and I meant to have a practice with this beforehand with Ryan to see if he could hear it. On a webinar with the microphone doing so many other things, this isn't the clearest. It will be perfectly clear for me. I hope it's going to come across for you. I'm just going to click on play now, and hopefully you will be able to hear elephants being read aloud.
Elephants are big, really big.
Can you hear that, Ryan? Brilliant. Okay, lovely. I always have to say, just in case, because some days it works and some days it's not so clear. So hopefully you can hear that then being read aloud. Elephants are big, really big. It's being read in a beautiful Welsh accent, and there was dual coloured highlighting while it was being read aloud. I just want to show you what some of the settings are around speech, because it's important, and it will come back up again and again throughout today. If we go into the settings and see the speech settings here, you've got lots of voices in here, lots and lots of voices. So your student can pick the voice that is most comfortable to them. So if they are indeed Welsh, they will probably prefer a Welsh voice. If they are Irish, they might prefer an Irish voice. If they are Indian, they might prefer an Indian voice. And we've got all of these catered for in here, okay? So this is where you will come again and again to options and to settings to see what the voices are and what is available. You'll also see as I'm scrolling that there are a lot of non-English language voices there as well, and that's very important for some of what we'll talk about a little later on. But you can see even just in English voices, we've got Irish, Scottish, South African, Indian, Australian, whatever it might be that your student wants. So they pick the one they're most comfortable with, they pick the speed they're most comfortable with, and if they need to slow it down for a specific reason, they can do so. And lots of other options in there that they can look at as well, but those are the key ones, so that when it's read aloud, it's read in a voice that they are comfortable with, at a speed they're comfortable working.
Elephants are big, really big.
That dual coloured highlighting is quite important as well. That will help them to focus on the word that is being read at the time, to remember it, hopefully, to learn it as they go along. So it's just giving that a little extra bit of learning. So text-to-speech is the sort of the bread and butter, as I say, of read and write and the key. But there are loads of other tools in here to help your students study more independently, to help them with their comprehension, to help them with their reading and their writing. For example, there are dictionaries built in. So we've got a word dictionary, which is exactly what you would expect it to be. It'll bring up several definitions. The student can have it read aloud and listen to it again in their own time, as many times as they need to, so that they can understand the word. And that's especially useful for confusable words. But we've also got picture dictionary. I'm just going to show you some of these as we go through. The picture dictionary is just a lovely, quick little way of a student really instantly getting that understanding of what the word is. And these also can be moved and dragged and dropped, and you can make them bigger and you can use them in whatever way you want to help engage the student and to help them to learn, or they can use them themselves. So again, if you're talking about how do you manage this rising number of students, they can actually do a lot of this themselves. They can have a play around with this, they'll enjoy it. They'll enjoy the pictures probably, and it can just give them that little bit of independence. Some of the other tools that are very important when it comes to SEN or ALN, I'm going to get all muddled up with all of my abbreviations today. Some of the other tools that are really useful are things like a screen mask. So you think of your students who have dyslexia, Mears-Irland, some kind of visual struggle, they will find the screen masking to be very useful. It's the equivalent of having the coloured overlay on the sheet, a physical sheet of paper, the plastic overlays, and this is sort of the equivalent of that. So hopefully you can see now that my screen is blue, that as I move my cursor, I have a little window that's moving up and down. Again, there are loads of options regarding this. Again, back in settings, you can change colour. You can take away that window if you don't like it, make it bigger or smaller, whatever it is that the student needs. At the start, they'll have a lot of fun experimenting with all the colours and all the different options. But eventually, those who really need that and will find that to be very useful will find the colour that works for them. Also built in there, I'll not take the time to show you, but also built in there for any of your students who have a very specific prescription from their optometrist with regards to colour that works for them, there is a way to input that colour in and it will bring up the exact colour that your student needs. So if you've got any students that fall into that category, it's good to know that that tool is available for them. Again, when we think about the sort of must-haves and nice-to-haves, for some students, as I say, this will be something that makes a real difference to them and to their experience and to their ability to work on a screen. But for a lot of other students who just get tired eyes, or indeed staff who get tired eyes, especially as we're all spending more time on screens at the minute, that's another tool that will just come in handy for everyone probably at some point, at some stage of the game. Okay, so we'll look at just one or two more and then we'll maybe move on to the next question, because I think we'll be able to tie up then some other loose ends there. That's sort of in terms of reading and comprehension and how does a student access text. In terms of helping a student to become more independent and to perhaps work alone in terms of their writing, there are a couple of little tools just to look at. One, probably the main one, is this dictation tool, Talk and Type as it's called. Again, that's one where a student will literally just say what they need to say their answers, say their essay, whatever it might be. Talk and Type is there for them. It doesn't require any training like a lot of online dictation or a lot of dictation softwares do. This requires no training. It will work straight away. All they'll need is a headset with a mic, and they'll be able to create their own writing that way. Okay. And there's also a lovely little tool here called Check It. That is for spelling, grammar, and confusable words or homophones. So again, thinking of those students who perhaps are struggling with dyslexia or something similar, where they are struggling to put their words together, they struggle to understand their spelling. It's a lovely little tool that will check those things for them, but also help them understand where the mistake was and how they fix it going forward. So we're helping them to learn as they go rather than just spell checking and auto correcting everything for them. Okay. So hopefully that's covered at least a little bit of that first question, but a lot of things are going to tie back in as we move through the day, Ryan. So
yeah, I think
questions?
For me, you mentioned obviously the useful for all element of all of Texthelp tools, and I think that's spot on. It's useful for those pupils and adults, staff in schools, even us. I use it on a personal level. Sometimes, like you mentioned, tired eyes. The amount of hours we spend in front of screens. If I'm sent a lengthy document, a file, often I'll just click play. And I can, I've got two screens in front of me. I can have it being read to me on one, and I can carry on doing something else on another. Almost in that podcast style way. So it completely summarizes that useful for all.
Yeah.
And it's again the Rolls Royce, because it can do so many different things. Read and write. It's been a big favorite of mine for a long time.
Yeah, and even using text to speech, for example, for proofreading.
Yeah.
And students can use that if they're not confident in their own spelling. They'll instantly hear them, but we can use that too. And again, as you say, you can even have it going in the background while you're doing something else, but you'll hear if there's a big mistake. So yeah, there's so many different ways. This webinar could go on for a very long time. All the ways, but we'll not. But there are so many different ways that you'll use, and I think as teachers see this, and hopefully that's what's happening today, they'll instantly be going, oh, that would work for something, or that would work for someone, or they'll see the ways that this is going to work for them.
Well, definitely, and I think that's what we're all about, is the personalized approach to it. There's not one tool that only does one thing. It can benefit lots of people in different ways. Hopefully now, Stephanie, if I'm going to keep pushing you, but start using it now. Start implementing it. Good luck with that. I'm sure you'll do well. Okay, Jason's question's up next then. So Jason, in year 5, upper key stage 2, has one TA. It's looking to enable pupils to be more independent. And obviously we've seen some elements of what you've just shown. What other functionalities would you suggest to allow the pupils to be more independent?
Yeah, this is something we talk about a lot, and I will talk about a lot today. Independent learning. It's the thing that keeps coming up again and again and again, and that's for several reasons. One is everyone is overloaded, and that's where Jason's coming from. He's overloaded. His TA is overloaded. That's where we're at the minute. And if you've got that rising number that Stephanie talked about of students with those needs in your classroom, there is just no way that one teacher and one TA can handle all of that and can give those students the kind of attention that they deserve. So it's about trying to find something that we can put in place that will help those students to become more independent, but also from probably a less practical and more, I don't know what the word is, sort of what we want for our students' point of view. We want them to be more independent. We know that ultimately that's better for them. We know that they'll do better in the world that way. That if they can study independently now, when they move on then to further higher ed or into the world of work, that will stand them in good stead, that they won't always have someone beside them to help them. So there are two sides to it. There's a very practical side and the very altruistic side, I suppose, isn't there? So yes, we've already seen some of the ways in which that can be done. I'll show a couple more. Let me just pop back in, share my screen again.
I think for me that, particularly with the new curriculum in Wales, it's looking for independence, creativity, experiential learning. I think the voice to text, the dictation element it's a no-brainer. Headsets, microphone, headphone sort of combos. The cheap chips, these, you can get them, schools can afford a class set if they're needed, and a lot of pupils can do it, and they find it fascinating probably as well.
Absolutely.
Seeing their speech appear on the screen.
I know. And it's good fun. It's good fun. At the start, all of these things, whenever we provide these tools into schools, we see the students take them and run with them far faster than the staff do and grown-ups do. I think we're always a bit more hesitant. We're wondering where we have to go, and they just get there faster. And they have so much fun with things like even the screen mask that I showed, and picking a voice and having something read in a really silly voice. They'll always enjoy that. Or trying, as you say, seeing their own words appearing on the screen. They'll always have great fun with that. But yes, absolutely to everything you just said. The independent learning thing is it's something that we were all talking about a lot, and it's something even from an exams perspective, which we're going to look at exams later, so I don't want to steal my own thunder. But you know, that's something that is being very much pushed from an exams point of view, that we're moving towards using digital solutions rather than human solutions, because that is the student working much more independently, and we just know that that's better for them. And we know that too, and that's how they gain confidence, and so on. So that's, yes, absolutely. We'll come back into elephants for a little bit, and then I'm going to actually move into the other tool, Orbit Note, and just show you how it kind of marries up. In terms of helping a student study more independently, absolutely, the text-to-speech, the play buttons are the key there. And the speech to text, those two are the absolute keys, where they don't need to have someone sitting beside them reading them something aloud, repeating it. And we all know that very often our ALN, SEN, EAL students even can be shy, and they maybe don't like to ask too many times, and they maybe don't like to admit that they don't understand something or they don't know what a word was. This way, you leave them on their own with a headset. They listen to it as many times as they want. If they need to listen to it 10 times to get it, they can do that. They can use all of the dictionaries. They can do all of those things to help them with their comprehension. And then as well, they can create their own pieces of writing. They don't have any shyness in terms of asking someone else to write something for them, or in terms of being so concerned with their own spelling and their own grammar that they're too scared to do it, and so they don't. This way they can put all of their wonderful ideas out onto paper and just achieve what they deserve to be able to achieve. So talk and type, we've already looked at briefly. That's one way, that's the dictation. There is one other way to do it, and that is predictive text. Some students, again, I'm going to be like a broken record, some students this will be a lifeline for. They are maybe used to using it in other programs or on their phones, whatever it might be. It works for them. Others will pop in and out of it to maybe help them with a sentence structure, or to help them with a spelling, or to help them with finding a new word for something. But basically it works exactly as you would expect it to. If I just turn it on here, you'll see that a box has appeared with 10 words in it, 10 potential words that I might want to start my sentence with. Now, in theory, I could write an entire essay without having to type a single word by just clicking on the word that I want to click on. Okay, but what's probably more likely is that I'll maybe type the odd word, and then I'll use predictive text to help me get to the next word. And predictive text for us, we've seen you know, sentence maturity, vocabulary maturity really improve by using predictive text. And as I say, some of them will really depend on it. Some of your students will really depend on it. We'll just see what, you know, what sentence comes up. That's just how it works, and you can pick any of those. For any of you who have students who have mobility issues, this is just a little bit of an aside. For any of you who have students who perhaps have mobility issues, in the Microsoft version of Read and Write, you can actually use the F1 to 10 keys to pick from those 10 words. So that's quite a lifeline as well for some students who maybe struggle to reach all of the keys on the keyboard, but they can manage to just use the F keys at the top. So just to make you aware of that, that's a little bit of an aside, but there we are. So yes, the huge benefits there to both staff and students, really, if your students can be independent enough to listen to something, to try and use some of these tools to help them with their comprehension, and also to create some writing without needing you to be right beside them all the time. That's freeing your time up, and it is obviously helping them to learn and become more independent. Before we move on, I just want to look at Orbit Note as well, because we've seen Read and Write, and obviously Read and Write there for documents, for the internet. All of those tools are available for browsing, for those kind of things. PDFs, as I mentioned at the very start, have became a bit of a challenge, I think, mostly during the pandemic and remote learning, when there were a lot of PDFs that maybe would have been used as handouts in a classroom activity, printed off and handed out, and now suddenly we were trying to share them digitally and it wasn't working very well. And so that was where Orbit Note came from, and it was basically to try and do a lot of the same stuff, and to allow students to access PDFs really well, and to have a lot of those same tools that we've talked about, but also to be able to answer on a PDF, to annotate on a PDF, and to do all of that. again, helping your student be more independent. You have a resource you want to use, you can maybe hand it out. You maybe want to still hand it out to some of your class, but for those students who need that little bit of extra support, they can get it digitally and work digitally and have those tools. So this is a PDF here. As you can see, we've got the same kind of features that we've looked at already. We've got play buttons, we've got dictionaries that will help them with their understanding. We've got the screen mask should they need it. So all of those same tools that we've had before, with a few extras. And this is what's going to allow us to annotate. So you've got a freehand drawing, for example. So in this particular activity, they're being asked to circle something, so they can do that by using the annotation tool. Right straight onto the PDF. I'm just circling random words. I may not be answering correctly here. If you're going, that's not right. Just to show you what it means, or you can tick things off. You can do whatever you want to do. You can join lines, whatever the activity requires, but you can do that all directly onto the PDF. If you've got if your student has a touchscreen device and they prefer to write than to type, then they can absolutely do that as well with the freehand drawing. But there is the little typing option as well, the little text box option, where they can put their answer in that way. I'll put the right answer this time because I know Ryan's watching me. What's the answer for beyond? Further past. There we go. So I can type that in, and you'll see that that answer is now just in the PDF for them. Again, we've got all of those accessibility tools built in, so they can have it read back to them if they need to. They've got a play button there. They can use predictive text, again, the little crystal ball there. I know there are a lot of icons, but hopefully you're starting to recognize some of them. But again, don't panic if it all seems new. It becomes second nature. You've got the predictive text if they need it. They've got the chance to dictate their answer if they want. Lots of options in there that just will help them to use PDFs more effectively, and to get the accessibility tools there as well. So that's hopefully has answered Jason's question in terms of a lot of the tools that are available there for helping students to become more independent and freeing up staff time.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, it certainly does. And it's great to see Orbit Note as well. The next question, I suppose, is not so much of a question, it's more of a recommendation. It's from a teacher called Maleri, who again, I think is over towards the Severn Bridge, the east of Wales. Welcome, Maleri, if you're watching on live or on demand. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your statement. Obviously, we put a number of posts out over the last few weeks, sort of advertising this webinar series. And one of the ones was a video. And to be honest, it was only in the last few months that I've seen the Welsh language text to speech. And Welsh language, for those of you who can speak it and know and have heard it, is a very complex and language. I'm a learner. My children go to Welsh language school. My wife is fluent, and it's difficult. I know it is. So the pupils and staff, particularly in second language schools, but also in first language Welsh schools, can understand how all these tools are great, but it never considers the Welsh language. So when this video appeared, I was thinking that is such a valuable tool, and it's great to see people like Maleri also advocate the use of it. So, and the key part of this statement is the fact how the pronunciation was surprisingly accurate, because it's very easy in the Welsh language to misinterpret something, particularly in an artificial intelligence sort of way. Yeah, Alison, if you can show us how educators, how pupils, how everybody can utilize that tool, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I was delighted to see this as well, because I have been banging on about how good the Welsh language is in read and write for 2.5 years now, trying to tell everyone. So it's lovely to have someone helping me with that. It is really, really good, the Welsh language. So for any of you who are Welsh on here, and even working in Welsh medium school, please do check it out. It's well worth, and it's new, and it's not something that it has been so available, is what I mean by that. It hasn't been so available to Welsh schools in the past. And again, when we come to look at exams, there are options there for Welsh medium exams. So do just to keep that all in mind. But obviously we don't just have Welsh people on here today, so we need to look at languages in general. Languages is my background, and I have tried to learn Welsh. I'm still trying a little bit, Um, and I,
You can speak a fair bit, to be fair.
no, I really can't. That's very kind of you. My favorite sentence is "I like coffee," just because it rhymes. That's my favorite sentence. But anyway, I've got a Welsh brother-in-law. I've got a Welsh-speaking niece and nephew, and between all of that, I am still finding Welsh quite a tricky one to learn, even though I am a languages person. But there is so much to talk about in terms of language and read and write. And this is because it is my background as well. It's where I can get quite passionate. So there is a wider question here. There's a lot of wider stuff to look at around languages in terms of MFL in your schools.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of EAL students in your schools, there's sort of two things to look at. Now, if any of you have an MFL background or are going to be talking to any of your MFL colleagues, we have got a lot of resources around MFL. I'm going to show you some of what we can do with read and write, but we've got resources and webinars and so on that we've done before that are very specifically looking at language, which might be useful to some of you. In terms of EAL, that is a challenge that most schools face. And funny, if you're on Twitter at the moment, you know, pretty much every day I see teachers asking for help with EAL. The other day I spoke to a guy who was in Wales who had a student from Bangladesh who was about to sit exams, and he'd only arrived in the UK and he was struggling with his language. And I know that a lot of us are now seeing Ukrainian students coming into our schools, and sometimes they are coming in at about 16 and they have to sit GCSEs and they don't have the language skills yet. So how do we support them? How do we support EAL students in your MFL class? That's another whole ball game. There's a whole lot of stuff. Or in for example, a Welsh medium school, or in an Irish language school, whatever it might be. How do we also make sure that those students who are already studying in a second or a third language are supported? So those are kind of all the areas around language to look at. So I'm gonna, again, I'll pop back into elephants again. It's my go-to today, apparently, and just show you what some of the tools are that they can use. So obviously we've already seen one or two of them. For example, a picture dictionary is invaluable to an EAL student. And English, I think often more so than any other language, has a lot of confusable words. Think about the word tissue, for example, which can mean a Kleenex, or it can mean tissue in your body. And if a student comes across that in a science document, find that very confusing. So having something like a picture dictionary which will show them the difference between the two. I'll actually just show you what that would look like in the picture dictionary. It'll help them to distinguish between what we're actually talking about here. That's gone a bit funny, hasn't it? Let me just take that out. I'll just take that out and try it again. This is always the danger of going off what I had planned to do. There we go. That's what I wanted to show. So we've got a box of tissues and we've got something that's clearly quite medical. So the student will then know from context what it is that they should be talking about. So those confusable words, organ is another great one. There are lots of confusable words in English, and that's what we want to help them with. Obviously, they've got the dictionary there as well, but if they're already struggling to read in English, the dictionary might not be that much of a help, but the picture dictionary really can be. And generally speaking, EAL students are, they get up to speed fast, but they need a lot of help in the early days, especially at the older stages and when they're doing maybe quite complex concepts and subjects. But probably the big one is the translator tool. And when I show the translator tool to language teachers, they start to panic because they don't like anything that's going to make it any easier for a student to translate. Now, we've all got Google Translate now, so it's out there and it's available. But our translator is very much designed for this purpose. It is a single word translator. It won't translate a chunk of text. It will translate one word at a time, and it is there to help a student with their understanding. So if they are reading this and this is not their first language and they get to the word family and they don't know what that means, they can click on the little translator tool and it will bring it up in the language they have selected. Now, I have currently selected Spanish, and you can see there are a few different, because it can be used as a noun, it can be used as an adjective, and so on. So it's brought up a few different words. They can all be read aloud in an accurate voice, but that is there for that purpose. It is there to help that student, not take them out of this, not take the whole article and put it into a different language so that they can just read it in their own language because they need to be able to do it in English, but to help them when they're stuck, to help them get over any of those little humps that they might come across. So that's an important one. I think the picture dictionary and the translator are the two really key functions for an EAL student. The other thing just to be aware of, though, is that there are options in other languages. So, for example, your MFL teachers might be interested to know that in this list of languages here, so we've got Spanish, French, Dutch, Portuguese, and this, which is an Indonesian language, you can actually have the whole of read and write, so all of the menus, all of the settings. So if you have a language teacher perhaps teaching Spanish and they know their students are using read and write, they can perhaps recommend to them that they do everything in Spanish, and you can see now that everything there has changed into Spanish. That's an option. When it comes to the language that for the translation, that gets changed here. Again, just in settings, but I'm just going to show you how many languages we have because this is important. You know, they're the key ones at the minute that a lot of people are asking about is Ukrainian. There it is. There's Welsh for you. And if I just keep scrolling back up, you can see how many there are, okay? We've got pretty much anything covered that you might find in your classroom. So they can have that translation help as and when they need it. So it's not primarily about helping students to cheat on an MFL, on some MFL work. It's about helping students who need that extra help because they're not studying in their own language. That's what the translator is about. Okay, I hope that's answered that question.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that was quite a question, but yes, I've expanded on it.
Really useful for everybody in education in Wales, and you know, utilising that it would be highly beneficial, I think. Thank you. Okay, next one. A good friend of mine, actually, exams officer based in Swansea, Joseph. I've been suggesting the tools for so long. He's an exams officer, but to be fair, hasn't had a chance to play with the tools yet. So opportunity to showcase how they could be used in an exam scenario. Functionality, particularly at, you know, obviously secondary level in exams. Where can he use the tools, or how can he use them, I suppose? What impact it can make? Okay,
sure. So again, this is another really big thing at the minute. Exams is what I spent a lot of my time talking about, and that is because of what I mentioned earlier, that the examination boards and JCQ in the UK are very much now pushing us towards using digital solutions rather than human readers. And as I said at the start, the reasons, if you look at the JCQ guidelines, the reasons are clear. They are wanting to help students to be more independent, but also from a school's perspective, you save a lot in terms of time and scheduling and rearranging and figuring out rooms and all of those things. If you've got a human reader or a human scribe, you need time, you need enough people, you pay for all of that, of course. And generally speaking, what we are seeing told is that having a digital solution like read and write is significantly cheaper than doing all of that, but also just a lot less hassle. Okay, so we have two exam solutions at the minute. One is the one that has been around for a long time, and that's in Microsoft. So if you're here today and you have a Google School and you're thinking, oh no, I really need a Google solution, don't panic. Microsoft is included as part of your deal, which I said at the start. It's, you know, you can have access on all of these devices. So what we find is there are schools who will be primarily Google schools, but they will have a bank of 5 or 10 laptops that are used for exams, and they will be Microsoft devices. And I'm going to show you what it looks like in Microsoft in a little while. It's a complete solution. It's an exam reader and an exam scribe. So if you have a student who is entitled to either or both, many are entitled to a reader but not a scribe, and then there'll be a few that are entitled to a scribe as well. If you have students who are entitled to either of those, they can use read and write. So that's one solution. If you are a completely Google school and you're perhaps using only Chromebooks and you have no other devices, then there is now a Chromebook solution that is using Orbit Note, which I've shown you earlier, and I will show you now what that looks like for exams. It is just a reader at the moment. we're hoping the scribe part will come. It's designed to be used in kiosk mode, so it's completely secure, and that has been why it's taken longer with Google. You know, it's very hard to lock things down and take everything offline with Google, so that has taken us a lot longer to develop than the Microsoft one. So that's why it's still slightly a work in progress, but as a reader it works perfectly for now. So I'll show you both of those and see what you think, just to see if the functionality that you need is there. Again, I could talk for an hour just on exams, and I'm conscious of our time, so I'm going to try and talk a bit less and show a bit more. I've never been good at that, but let's see. I'm going to show Orbit Note first, and I'm just going to show it on slides actually, because it'll be a little bit quicker for us. So as I said, Orbit Note can now be used in kiosk mode. When the student gets into their exam, they'll open up their device, and this is what they'll see. Hello exam user, welcome to Orbit Note, let's get started. They will then click to open a PDF from Google Drive. The only PDF that will appear there is their exam paper. Okay, I hope you can see that. I'll just make it a little bit bigger. The only PDF that will appear there is their exam paper. They click to open it. Once they open it, they're in Orbit Note, and you can see, hopefully, if you remember what I showed you earlier, this is a much smaller toolbar than what we looked at earlier, because they are only allowed the speech buttons. This is the screenshot reader, so that will be in there as well. So that's the coloured overlay on the screen, and their highlighters. I haven't shown you the highlighters yet, but I will in a moment. Students are allowed to bring in physical highlighters to an exam, so there's no reason why a student with an access arrangement shouldn't have their highlighters as well. And they will just do the exam by listening to it being read aloud, and then do their answers whatever way their access arrangement allows, whether that's handwritten or whether that's typing it in another document. But you can see just from this, it works the same way. It's got the same coloured highlighting, geo highlighting as it's being read aloud, and so on. So that is Orbit Note for exams. The Microsoft Windows for exams is a slightly fuller solution. So I'm just going to open it up now. Let's see. So hopefully you'll see that the Windows toolbar isn't drastically different from the Google one. The icons are all as similar as we can possibly get them to be. And again, this toolbar is already shrunk down. This is your exam mode toolbar. You can see it says at the top exam mode. The setup of this is not complicated. So again, that's something we will walk you through in more detail than what I have time to do today, but it's a very easy setup. It's one button to toggle on and off, essentially, to go from the full toolbar in Read and Write to this secure lockdown version. Because obviously they can't have access to all of the other tools that we've just looked at. They can only get access to certain tools during an exam setting. I'm just going to open an exam paper to give you the full effect. So what are the tools that they're allowed? Again, it's the speech buttons. So that's the reader, and that's the same as what you've just seen in Orbit Note for Google. But what we've also got here, this little tool called Screenshot Reader, I haven't had a chance to show this yet, but basically Screenshot Reader grabs any text that's locked within an image or a diagram or a map or a newspaper cutting, whatever it might be, that would otherwise be locked and inaccessible. It allows them to grab that text and have it read aloud. So we're making sure that we're not leaving them stranded with any of the sort of extras that might be in along with their exam. As I say, maps, diagrams, any of those kind of things. You've got your screen mask again. So you can see it's a bluey colour. Then you've got talk and type. So for your students who are allowed scribe, they can use the talk and type again, the dictation tool, okay? And the highlighters. The highlighters are there also. Again, I'll just show you how they work actually, because I haven't shown you that yet.
Sample set 2021.
We'll not have it read aloud. I'll just turn that off. Okay. So there you go. So it allows them to highlight whatever they need to highlight in the same way that a student with a physical highlighter can do. So that's very basic. They've got nice colors there and they can do whatever they want. And as you've already heard, it will read aloud. So it will read aloud the questions for them. And again, depending on what way they're allowed to work, whether they're handwriting their answers, whether they are dictating their answers, whether they are typing their answers, they can have a split screen. It works whatever way they need to work, basically. and it's very locked down, so there's not a lot that they can change. They can slow the voice down if they want. They can change the voice if they want, but they can't do very much more than that. As I did mention, because there are Welsh people on here, and Ryan will be asking, the Welsh Voices are there as well. So this is also in a Welsh medium exam. This is also able to be used. So you would just turn on the voice there and make sure that we've got the right guy for the job. So that is the exam mode. Yeah.
Excellent. I think it's such a good tool that, you know, is available widespread now, that complies with, you know, restrictions and guidelines and things like that. So hopefully, Joseph, that'll answer a few of your questions that you keep emailing me about. You can just go and
email me instead.
Yeah, we come on to contact details, obviously,
later
on.
Yeah.
Okay, home straight. Ridyan's next. Literacy lead, I'm sure, is asking a question that every single teacher, if not certainly the literacy leads in schools, are keen to acknowledge and to look to find the best functionality out there for. So motivating pupils to engage with reading.
Yeah.
Probably one of those STP targets across every school in the country. How would you respond to that?
It's such a big question. Again, it's one we're asked a lot. We all know how important it is that our students want to read. And I have a 4-year-old, and I know how important it is that she wants to read and wants to be read to, obviously. In her instance, like this is something that from preschool right through is a battle very often. And if you have a student who is struggling with their literacy for whatever reason, then it's going to be even harder. They just don't want to do it. They won't want to do it. So how do we help them to engage with it? Well, I think I've probably already shown. So for example, you've got, again, I'll go back to good old elephants. You've got the dictionaries, you've got the reading aloud. Even that just can make a big difference. And we all know that ourselves as well, that even if we're tired at the end of the day and we have another like 5-page something to read, it can just be too much. So having something read aloud can be really soothing in that instance. So for a student who really struggles with their reading, generally the reading aloud is going to be such a key. The making it visual is going to be such a key. And I have seen huge documents where someone has gone through and put in the little, if you remember at the start, I showed you how you can drag and drop the little image in from the picture dictionary. And if you do that, you know, even a couple per paragraph, that can instantly make it so much more engaging. There's one tool that I haven't actually shown yet that can really help with that sort of visualization of everything, making it that little bit more enjoyable for a student, or helping them just to kind of grasp the key vocab before they have to start reading. And it's this one, which is called Vocabulary List. And it pulls in sort of the dictionaries and the words itself just into one document, so that they can sort of even look over the words, look over the pictures, get an idea of it before they even start, which is quite a nice one. And I know Senkos and Alenkos use it quite a lot to kind of prepare for maybe starting a new topic or whatever it might be. I'll just really quickly show you. It's again back to the highlighters that we've just looked at. You just pick, it doesn't matter what color, I'm just picking colors, picking words and using colors. So there's 4, but you can do this with as many words as you want. Click on Vocabulary List, and it's going to collect all of those into a new document, which will hopefully be happening now. And basically it will be the word, the dictionary definition, and the picture dictionary, the picture. There we are. And I picked die, which is a little bit morbid, but anyway, you can take out whatever you need to take out. You don't have to, I know, you can tell it's getting late in the day. I didn't really look at the words I was picking. You can take out whatever you need to take out. It's fully editable. You can add in columns. I've seen teachers who've added in, you know, maybe 6 columns with a different activity in each column. You know, you can do whatever you want with this, but it really quickly gets you a tool, a resource that you can use with your students to help engage them perhaps in the topic before they've even started, to pull it back to the question, and to help them learn what the words are before it's even started, so that when they're faced with this, it's not quite so daunting then. So that's a really good one. The other one I would mention very quickly is this one called Audio Maker. It goes back to that whole having it read aloud thing, but it's taking it one step further, making it one step more accessible. It basically creates an audiobook. So if a student has a lot of reading to do, whether that be something they maybe have to learn, like a poem that they have to learn, or a story that they have to read, and it's just they're really struggling with it, they can use Audio Maker to create an MP3 file. So they can take as much text as they want, create an MP3 file, which they can then listen to in their own time, on the bus, at home, going to sleep, whatever it might be. And that can really help. So they don't need to be in front of their computer. They don't need to be watching that colored highlighting all the time, although obviously that's encouraged sort of during class or homework time. But for those kind of big chunks of reading perhaps that they have to do, or for a book that they have to do, to create it and to put it into an audiobook, that an MP3 file that they can listen to as they go about their business, can really help with that engagement as well. I think that's an important one.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, the way of the world now with so many podcasts and things like that nowadays, I think that lends itself for productivity for an adult as well. I think the both last two tools you've just shown there, I often forget, if people said, well, describe, read and write, what can it do? And I go through the tools, the two I probably forget, and they're so useful for productivity for teacher to create that quick one sheet of sort of keywords and imagery around it. It's such a nice scaffolding, I suppose, to offer potentially an individual with literacy needs. I think they're two really nice ones, and it's hopefully going to encourage more people to use them.
Yeah,
excellent. Ridian, I hope that has given you a few tips and pointers about how we can develop, I suppose, an innovative way of encouraging pupils to engage with reading. Next, so Sian is a numeracy lead I've worked with for a number of years now. Sian's provided a number of questions around numeracy. The second half, if you like, the second part of our webinar series that I'm sure some of you have already signed up to is in a fortnight's time. It would be the same registration link if you only signed up to today's version of today's episode of our webinar series. We're going to be looking at another of Texthelp tools that is numeracy focused. So, Sian, we're parking your questions for today, mindful of time as well. But like you say, there's so much to talk about, so many different opportunities to support personalized learning with both the tools we've shown today. We will go on to Petra's question though. So Petra's a digital lead who has been using the tool, again, is another one who's advocating it across social media, but is now looking to go to the next step, whether that's subscription. I don't think they've got a subscription yet. So how do people go about that, please, Alison?
Okay. So this one, it's not entirely straightforward to answer, and that's simply because there are so many different variables. So school to school will vary massively in how they're set up and how their network is run and who does what, and in how things are deployed. So it's hard for me to answer with one answer that will suit everybody. So we can talk about that individually at a later stage. But essentially, a whole school license is relatively easy to roll out. You'll get a code and you'll get a wizard that will take you through it step by step. If you're struggling with at any point of the wizard, maybe something to do with your setup, it may be something to do with you being, even whether you're a hub school or a non-hub school, that can make a difference, depending on your local education authority, if they have anything sort of in place that might change things, and that's true right across the UK. There's just so much variation. We've worked with education authorities in all 4 countries, and it's all different. Everything's different. So if you do run into issues because of some of those things, we have a tech support team. We can set up calls. I can help to a certain extent, and then when it gets beyond me, I can move you on to the real experts, and they can help you roll it out. But generally speaking, it rolls out on your domain. We've got that wizard there that will walk you through the steps. It's a fairly straightforward setup. So
I'll be honest, from my own experience supporting schools when they've had a subscription, that tech support team have been fantastic, and any minor blip that, getting it installed and rolled out across the school, they've done it time and time again. So any questions, just go directly if anybody's looking to do that and it encounters any problems, which they shouldn't really, but if they do that, it's a holistic approach to the onboarding. It is a wraparound approach. So yeah, Petra, get involved in that. I would say certainly it's really customer focused and customer friendly, and it helps a beginner, complete novice who's a digital lead perhaps enable that across the school for all staff and pupils. Excellent. Excuse me. The next one I think is down to me.
Yeah.
There's a couple of general questions about, particularly around Chrome users. But obviously there's people on who've identified the Apple users, Microsoft and Google. So it's a bit of a plug for the Aspire to Be solutions that we have as well with this. We've got an online on-demand learning platform subscription that can did I go then? I think did you hear that?
I lost you.
Yeah. Subscription model, and individual users, teachers, and all staff across a school can have access to on-demand learning. There are specific courses on there for Apple, Microsoft, and Google. But in particular, I'm going to signpost people to the accessibility with Chrome, with iPad, and with 365 on there. They're uniquely made, they're bespoke videos highlighting some excellent key functionalities on a device, just as much as third-party software, extensions, apps, particularly Texthelp. I'm going to signpost you to. Some of those tools are highlighted on there. Additionally, as well as Aspire Ed, where I suppose the Texthelp and Aspire to Be combination started is when we developed Included You. So there on screen is a screenshot of Aspire Ed. It's aspireed.online. Quick search will find that on a search engine. But Included You is something that we've developed over the last 18 months to 2 years now. It's completely free. It's effectively a website full of resources, and it's where I would drive traffic to anybody looking to improve their accessibility knowledge, understanding, experience, and skill set. Go and take a look at includedyou.online. The Texthelp tools are on there, and specifically what I noted earlier, when Alison mentioned the Chrome extensions and the Chrome web store and things, there's tutorials there to signpost you. There's video demonstrations showing exactly how you go to those different locations. As you can see, the drop down on screen, all Apple tools, all Microsoft tools, all Google tools. You can go that way into the resources. Find, obviously, from today, Read and Write and Orbit Note are on there, as well as next week's Equatio. Alongside a lot of other great tools to use as well, particularly the Texthelp ones. There's great links and resources to the relevant pages on websites. I think signposting to Alison, to your contact details would be really useful too. For anybody off the back of today who's looking to get involved, maybe looking for a trial or anything, where do they go?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you see that okay? Yeah?
Yeah, we're up.
Perfect. The slides were playing up a little bit there, sorry, at the end. So yes, absolutely. If you've got any questions at all about anything that I've said today, or if there's something you would like to see in more detail, or you would like to see again, obviously today was very much a whistle-stop tour of what we can do with Read and Write and Orbit Note. There's so much more there. If exams interest you, if MFL interested you, if you want to see some more specifics around ALN, whatever it is, just send your school name in the subject title to my email address, which is a.woodrow@texthelp.com, and I'll be able to get back to you and have a chat through what we can do for your school. Alternatively, I am offering plenty of free trials, plenty of free stuff. So if you would like to trial it for your school, then that's absolutely something that I can set up for you as well. So again, just in the subject line, say free trial, and I'll be able to get started on that straight away then. So don't be afraid to get in touch afterwards.
Everyone loves a freebie.
Well, I know everybody loves it. So anything at all that I can help with, that's what I'm here for, and I'm really happy to do so. So yes, just get in touch. If you're on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, and I know we have Ryan's. I was supposed to put that up, wasn't I? A little banner. I've just remembered. Let me see if I can find it for the last few minutes. A little banner for. Oh my goodness, there it is. For our email addresses as well and our Twitter handles. So absolutely just get in touch anything you need.
Fantastic. Well, fair, but I must say you've fended off and batted off those questions really well. You've the hot seat. It was I think it's hopefully been really powerful message to come across and inspired hopefully those watching live. So thank you to tuning in live and likewise you watching on demand. We'll obviously be sharing links to the webinar now across social media and in aspire to be newsletters and things like that. So hopefully a lot of people, particularly those aspire to be partner schools and other schools across Wales and the rest of the UK and Ireland. Yeah, great to have you on and hopefully get involved with Texthelp with a free trial.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we really appreciated having your time. I know that school life is busy at the minute and so on, so it's been really great to have your time today. Thank you so much, and thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you. See you in a fortnight.
All right, look forward to it. I'm going to go and brush up on my maths.
Take care.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye.